You ever met someone like this? You're at a backyard barbecue, right? The charcoal grill is crackling, someone's laughing across the yard, and your cousin is going on about how the government's putting microchips in the flu shot. Again, you patiently pull out your phone, show him 3 fact-check articles, even read a quote from the CDC. He just squints, takes a sip of his beer, and says, "Nah, that's all fake news. I saw a video about it." And you're just left there, holding your phone like it's a dead fish. Or maybe it's at work. Your team has been grinding for weeks on a big client pitch. Then Dave from accounting, who's barely glanced at the project, pipes up, "Why don't we just wing it?" Clients love authenticity. You try to explain that this client has a history of firing teams that don't hit their marks. He just grins, leans back in his chair, and says, "Relax, I've got a gut feeling this'll work." Come Friday, the client walks, and Dave, he just shrugs. Guess they weren't ready for innovation. It's maddening, isn't it? It's not just that they're wrong, it's the confidence, the absolute, bulletproof certainty. It's like their own opinions are a sponge, soaking up everything, while your facts, your logic, your evidence just bounce off them like rain on a tarp. Evil? Nah, evil is usually sneakier. It knows it's breaking the rules. This is loud, proud, and completely, utterly convinced it's winning. And that's the scary part, way scarier than some villain twirling a mustache. A German pastor named Dietrich Bonhoeffer, writing from a Nazi prison cell, put it better than I ever could. He said, "Against stupidity we are defenseless. Neither protests nor force can touch it. Arguments fall on deaf ears. Evil always carries the seeds of its own undoing. It creates unease. But stupidity feels self-satisfied, immune, and convinced of its own rightness. And that makes it far more dangerous." Gives you chills, right? This isn't just some dusty philosopher's hot take from the 1940s. It feels like the vibe of our world right now, doesn't it? This thing Bonhoeffer was talking about, it's not about being dumb. It's like a virus that hijacks your gut, your pride, even your smarts. It's the doctor who swears by essential oils over vaccines, the lawyer who posts proof the election was stolen, ignoring 60 court cases that said otherwise. These aren't necessarily bad people. They're just people who have fallen asleep. Not in their beds, but inside their own heads. And here's the kicker I've come to realize. This virus doesn't care if you went to Harvard or dropped out of high school. It just wants to set up shop in your brain, hit mute on common sense, and crank the "I'm right" dial all the way up. This isn't some abstract debate. It's your cousin at the cookout. It's Dave from accounting. And, if we're being honest, sometimes it's you and me, on a day when we're tired and stubborn and just refuse to admit we messed up. To really get how deep this rabbit hole goes, you have to look at the proof. And I'm not talking about some fringe video. I'm talking about a chilling experiment done at Yale University back in 1961 by a psychologist named Stanley Milgram. He brought in regular people, just folks like you and me, and had a guy in a lab coat tell them to deliver what they thought were painful, even lethal, electric shocks to another person in the next room. They could hear the screams, the pleas for them to stop. And what happened? A staggering 65% of them kept flipping the switches, all the way to the end. Think about that. Feel that. These weren't monsters. They were normal people who, under the influence of what they saw as authority, just unplugged from their own moral compass. They surrendered their own mind. This is exactly what Bonhoeffer saw in his own country, a land of brilliant, educated people who willingly participated in their own intellectual surrender. And from his prison cell, he realized something revolutionary. He wasn't just talking about a lack of knowledge. He was talking about what we might now call functional stupidity, a willful ignorance. He wrote, "In conversation with the stupid person, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with him as a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. His very being has been overwritten." And here's the most unsettling part of his theory, the part that rings so true today. He realized that this state of mind isn't an accident. Powerful forces don't need to burn books anymore. They just need to flood the library. They create conditions where thinking for yourself is so difficult, so exhausting, that surrender feels like a relief. Our social media algorithms make billions when we react with emotion, not critical thought. News outlets get more clicks with outrage than with nuance. When people are drowning in debt, working 2 jobs, and constantly bombarded with fear, intellectual surrender becomes a survival strategy. And our brains? They're wired to comply. Research on cognitive dissonance shows that when we're faced with information that contradicts our beliefs, our brains experience it as a kind of pain. This is amplified tenfold when we're stressed or overwhelmed. Add in our primal need to conform, what Milgram and Asch's experiments showed, where 75% of people will agree with an obviously wrong answer just to fit in with a group, and you have a perfect storm. Now, layer on top of that a 2018 MIT study which found that lies spread 6 times faster than the truth online. Not because people are foolish, but because lies are often more emotionally satisfying. They offer a quick hit of certainty. The algorithms notice, and they create echo chambers that act like intellectual quicksand. Have you ever noticed how your social media feed seems to show you exactly what you want to see? That's not an accident. That's the architecture of chosen ignorance in action. We are no longer just dealing with human manipulation. We're facing systems designed by artificial intelligence to exploit our cognitive vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Every click, every pause, every emotional flare-up is analyzed and weaponized against our ability to think for ourselves. This isn't just about Nazis or propaganda anymore. It's about the very wiring of your brain. So, if our systems and our own minds are rigged against us, what do we do? This is where it gets personal. It's not about being smarter, it's about being more courageous. It's about cultivating what psychologists call intellectual humility, the simple, profound recognition that our knowledge is always incomplete, and we could be wrong. It's about having the courage to say the 3 most powerful words in the pursuit of wisdom: I don't know. The tragedy is that intellectual surrender often feels like liberation. Thinking is hard work. It's painful to admit you might be wrong. But Bonhoeffer argued that this discomfort is the price of remaining truly human. In a world that profits from our surrender, choosing to think for ourselves becomes a radical, revolutionary act. The question he leaves us with isn't whether we're smart enough to avoid stupidity. It's whether we are committed enough, brave enough, to keep thinking when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or costly. So here's my challenge to you and to myself. This week, find just one belief you hold strongly and spend 30 minutes researching the best, most intelligent arguments against it. Not to torture yourself or to become paralyzed by doubt, but to practice the kind of intellectual courage Bonhoeffer died for. If your belief survives, you'll hold it with a deeper understanding. If it doesn't, you'll have learned something sacred about the difference between conviction and truth. What's one belief you're willing to question this week? Let me know in the comments. Because in a world designed to profit from our surrender, the simple act of thinking carefully becomes the most important form of resistance we have.